Most people think Scorpio has trust issues. That framing is wrong, and it is costing you the ability to actually understand yourself. Trust issues implies something is broken, a deficiency, a wound that makes you less capable of connection than other people. What Scorpio has is not a trust issue, it is a trust architecture, a highly specific, internally consistent system for evaluating whether another person is emotionally safe to let in. The problem is not that the system exists. The problem is that most Scorpios have never had it explained to them, so they carry it as shame instead of understanding it as structure. That changes today. Here is what is actually happening when Scorpio takes a long time to trust someone. You are not being slow. You are not being difficult. You are running a detection process that most people are not even aware exists in human psychology. It is called emotional congruence scanning. Every person communicates on two levels simultaneously. There is what they say, and there is what they actually mean. Their words, and underneath the words, the emotional signal their behavior is sending. For most people, these two channels are loosely connected. They say something and roughly mean it. They express warmth and feel warmth. The gap between the two channels is small. Scorpio reads the gap. Not consciously, not as a choice. It happens automatically. When someone speaks to you, part of your mind is not listening to the words. It is scanning for the distance between what is being said and what is emotionally true. A compliment that does not feel genuine. Friendliness that has no warmth underneath it. Openness that feels performed. You feel that gap before you can explain it. And until you can resolve it, you cannot move toward that person, not fully. This is not paranoia. This is a neurological sensitivity to emotional signal that is operating below the level of conscious thought. The question is why Scorpio develops this scanning mechanism in the first place. The answer sits in early emotional experience. Every person builds an internal model of how the world works based on their earliest relational experiences. These models are not abstract beliefs, they are emotional predictions. When something happens, a specific result follows. When someone is warm, it means one thing. When someone pulls away, it means another. For Scorpio, the formative emotional experiences often included a specific pattern, incongruence that preceded pain, someone who said one thing and did another, a warmth that was conditional, a closeness that turned, an environment where the emotional surface and the emotional reality did not match. This does not have to be dramatic. It does not require trauma in the clinical sense. It can be as subtle as a parent who expressed love but was emotionally unavailable, a friendship that felt close until it suddenly was not, a moment where trusting someone's presentation led to being caught off guard. The mind registers that pattern, and then it builds a system to prevent it from repeating. The system is the congruence scanner, the gap detector, the part of you that cannot relax into a new connection until the signals align. This is adaptive intelligence. It was built to protect you. The issue is not that it exists. The issue is that it runs without your conscious input, which means it sometimes protects you from people who are actually safe. Let us look at what this actually looks like in your relationships. You meet someone. They are friendly, engaging, immediately open. They offer closeness quickly. And instead of feeling warmth, you feel a mild discomfort, a question mark, something you cannot name but cannot ignore. Other people read this person as wonderful. You read them as unresolved, or the opposite happens. Someone is quiet, slow to reveal themselves, measured in how they engage. Other people find them cold. You find them more trustworthy than anyone in the room. Because the signal is clean. There is no performance gap. This is the mechanism at work. Now here is where it gets more complex. The congruence scanner is highly accurate but not perfectly calibrated. Because it was built in response to specific past experiences, it sometimes reads neutral situations through the filter of old ones. Someone who is simply nervous presents as incongruent. Someone who is emotionally private presents as safe when they may not be. This is the part of the system that requires conscious work, not disabling the scanner, calibrating it, learning the difference between a genuine gap in someone's emotional signal and a projection from your own history. Most Scorpios have never been given the language to make that distinction. And without the language, the scanner runs unchecked, which means the wall stays up longer than necessary, and real connections are delayed or lost. Here is what the people around you see. They see someone who is slow to open up, guarded, difficult to read, possibly cold. They make overtures and receive measured responses. They share and do not receive in return. They conclude that you do not like them, or that you are proud, or that you are simply not interested. What is actually happening is that you are still in the evaluation phase. You are still reading the signal. You have not made a decision about this person yet. You are waiting for the data to resolve. The problem is that people do not know they are being evaluated, and most people do not wait. This creates a structural relational problem for Scorpio. The very process that is designed to ensure the safety of connection ends up reducing the number of connections available, because people leave before the evaluation completes. This is not a character flaw. It is a timing mismatch between your internal process and the pace that most social environments operate at. Understanding this distinction matters because it changes the question. The question is not, why am I so guarded? The question is, how do I keep the discernment while reducing the delay? The developed Scorpio does not stop scanning. They learn to read their own scanner. They develop the ability to ask, is this discomfort coming from a real gap in this person's signal, or is it coming from a pattern in my own history that I am projecting onto a neutral situation? That question requires self-awareness that most people never develop because they never needed to. For Scorpio, it is not optional. It is the difference between using your emotional intelligence as a tool or being used by it as a pattern. The practical work looks like this. When you feel the instinctive guardedness towards someone, pause before the wall goes up fully. Ask yourself what specifically feels incongruent. Try to name it. Is it something in their behavior? Or is it a feeling you have had before in a different context? If you can name a specific behavioral incongruence, trust it. That is the scanner working correctly. If you cannot name it and it feels more like a general unease, that is worth sitting with rather than acting on immediately. That is the calibration work. The goal is not to override your nature. It is to become conscious of it. Because the Scorpio capacity for reading emotional truth is one of the rarest and most valuable psychological abilities that exists. The work is learning to wield it with precision instead of letting it operate as an automatic defense. You were not built to trust easily. You were built to trust accurately. Those are not the same thing, and the distinction matters enormously for how you understand yourself and how you navigate the people in your life. The architecture is not the problem. The lack of awareness of the architecture is. Now that you can see the system, you can begin to work with it consciously, and that is where the real development begins. In the next video, we look at what happens after the architecture is breached, when someone who was inside the circle does something that puts them outside of it. The internal restructuring that follows betrayal in Scorpio is one of the most psychologically specific processes in this archetype, and almost no one talks about it accurately. That is what we are doing next.